Welcome to another edition of the Mail Time Podcast. I am joined today by Adam Scott-Bellos, the founder, CEO, president of TIFF, Israel Innovation Fund, fresh off of the start of a hair transplant. How you feel?
Honestly, I feel okay. It's been very interesting. I am having mood swings from the anesthesia. That's been the most interesting thing of the whole thing. And I'm just really glad I spent my money in Israel and not Turkey, to be completely honest.
Shout out to my friend Ben, who sends me every single one of your Instagram stories.
Which Ben?
I don't know that he wants to be named here. He might be like one of those silent
supporters. Yeah. I have a lot of silent supporters.
So for people who don't know you, the professional stuff we'll deal with separately. I want to get right to the point here, which is you're outspoken about nonprofits and the way that they behave. So for those who haven't seen you on Instagram, what are your thoughts on Jonathan Greenblatt?
What a great way to start the podcast.
Go right to it.
I mean, like, just right to it. But first you said, like, I'm outspoken about nonprofits. So do you want me to, like, just say, like, why I started TIFF and then?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. I want to find out.
You just want to know
exactly
what I think of Jonathan Prophet. I think Jonathan
Greenblatt has done.
I think that everything about Jonathan Greenblatt is weak. And I'm not saying that to be funny or, like, I'll be serious now. I think that every single thing that Jonathan does has been a failure. I think that his arrogance and hubris has gotten in the way of protecting Jews. I think that he is a political operator that thinks that his shit does not stink when it stinks up the entire room, in my opinion. It's very hard for me personally to think that somebody could be in that position with a $1.2 million salary, with millions and millions of dollars, if not $100 million budget, and then most recently do a New York Times article saying, how did we get here? And the fact that anybody could
You're
say...
You're talking about anti-Semitism.
I'm talking about anti-Semitism. Listen, I have my personal opinions about John. I don't think he's a gentleman. I don't think he's a mensch. I think he's very rude, and I think he's very condescending in public. And you know what? I always really tried to get along with him. I even tried to do business with the ADL. And every opportunity that I gave John to be a mensch, he figured out a way to not be one. And I remember the very first time I sat with him when I started the Israel Innovation Fund and I was taking meetings with all the largest organizations, the first question he had asked me, and we had started the organization maybe a week or two earlier, was how much money had I raised? And I believe that Jonathan is the type of nonprofit leader that only sees people for what's inside of their wallets. And I don't believe that he's on the pulse of what most American Jews are going through. But in addition to that, I think that he's definitely at fault for not doing his job, which then relates to a rise in anti-Semitism. And I think that if anybody would have done the job of the CEO of the ADL right over the last 20 years, there's a very big possibility we could be in a very different position that we're in now.
And does that extend to other nonprofits, or like why focus on the Anti-Defamation League specifically in this case?
So I don't focus on just Jonathan or the ADL. Jonathan just makes it very easy. And he makes himself a very easy target. I will never forget, after their most recent gala, he went on MSNBC or whatever, or NBC or CBS or whatever, and he goes, "Last night was electric." And it was like when Ben Stiller and all these people hosted this big event, and then the next day people were beat up in New York. And, my problem, my nickname, one of my nicknames for Jonathan is Jonathan Red Carpet Blatt. He's more into red carpets and looking like he's doing something than he's actually doing something. One of the things that I joke around every once in a while, I'll throw up a picture on Instagram and it's an image of me like at a podium or like doing a serious pose, and I call it greenblatting. And and the whole point is that
part of the reason I wanted to have you on is that you'll say certain things. I might agree with some, I might disagree with some. You definitely speak in a way that I personally would not speak, but I do think that it is part of the online landscape, and that's why I'm not going to remove your jokes from the beginning of this.
Oh no, you're going to remove those jokes. Like,
no, but but in all seriousness, I do think that people can evaluate things on their own. I'm not offended just because I wouldn't speak like that. I'm not saying that.
listen, at the end of the day, I'm offended by the fact that by Jonathan not doing his job, more Jews are dead, more Jews are attacked. Okay, if Jonathan was doing his job, he would not be, his people would not be getting kicked out of universities for training. Okay, his people would not be getting kicked out of schools. The fact is that Jonathan was unable to create the relationships that are necessary to maintain a level of education and awareness of what is anti-Semitism or what is not. If you look at the goals of organizations like the ADL, okay, and we can include so many more. And as anybody that knows me that's watching your show, I talk about every organization, whether it's the ADL, Hatzalah, FIDF. I was one of the first people to start talking about FIDF. There's so many that I speak about, and nonprofit leaders that I speak about who I feel are totally corrupt or take too large of a salary. Jonathan just makes it very easy because he takes the largest one at $1.2 million. But at the end of the day, Jonathan's job.
Can I push back on that for 1 second?
Wait, but I want to make this one. Wait, make this one point. Let me make this one point and then push back. Jonathan's job is to sell philo-Semitism. What is outselling him is anti-Semitism. And if you are in the business of selling philo-Semitism and you're being outsold by anti-Semitism, then you're not doing your job very well. And if you're the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, you're going to get replaced because his job is to convince people to not hate Jews. His job is to provide the opportunity for people to be educated to destroy their ignorance towards Jews. And instead of focusing on that one thing, and he has said it himself, his job is to be the defender of the Jewish people. Instead of doing that one job, he does a lot of other things that have nothing to do with that. And I still don't understand, why is the ADL spending $34 million a year on real estate every year? Why are they spending the amount of money they're spending on ads? Why are they paying money for Facebook ads or Instagram ads? Why is he running to Paris and Amsterdam to make content? His job is America. Okay. And I'm sorry, but I want people to do their jobs when it comes to fighting anti-Semitism. And at the end of the day, no organization, not the ADL, not anybody, has come up with a plan to start defending the Jewish people of the diaspora. Nobody is saying, how do we make our diaspora strong? What is a strong diaspora? A strong diaspora is a diaspora full of strong Jews. What is a strong Jew? A strong Jew is a Hebrew-speaking, self-defending Jew. And that's why the Israel Innovation Funds created Project Maccabee. And that's why we're working on bringing self-defense in Hebrew in a massive way to the diaspora. And the problem is that you have nonprofit leaders spending millions of dollars on nothing and compensating themselves in the hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. And the results are nothing that can be measured. And that is where my problem is. I know you want to push back on the salary thing, but at the end of the day, I do not see anyone worth the salaries that they are taking. And when I find out that the UJA gives $1 million to Israel to go into Gaza, when the international community is spending hundreds of millions of dollars, but they tell my organization that they don't have $5,000 to pay for the hostage wine that we partnered with Israeli families whose children were taken hostage to bring it over to the United States. There's a distortion.
We don't disagree.
I know.
All I'm saying is that if someone fundamentally does a good job,
sure,
I'm not opposed to them getting compensated properly. So
neither am I.
If you were to raise $100 million and you had an overhead of $5 million and you wanted to go to Vegas and blow $4 million of that $5, having fun with the two people who are splitting $1 million salary, God bless, I have no problem. The issue is that it's not being executed properly.
Listen,
so that's why my problem about focusing on
it's not about the salary. It's about the salary for the result.
Correct. Exactly. Well, that's the trick.
Okay.
By the way, the trick is there is no result that can be measured.
But that's not true. There's always a result that can be measured.
No, because the metrics that they're providing are not measurable.
But at the end of the day, we can see that as individuals. You know, a lot of organizations, they say, oh, we don't do this, we don't do that, when all they are is arguing over the same dollars and the same cents. And, you know, JNF started with trees. Now what they do, JNF USA, they fundraise for different projects. So they buy the rights to that project to fundraise it in the States. That's really all JNF USA does now. Okay. So they could do whatever they want.
Some of them are really good projects.
Some of them are great projects. But at the end of the day, we are still dealing with a North American Jewry that is assimilating and distancing and breeding an ignorant generation of Jews who are ignorant to their own heritage, culture, language, history, and homeland. See, the dirty little...
I agree with you.
The dirty little secret about the Jewish organized world is that they don't want to build educated Jews. They don't actually want to build Zionists. Because at the end of the day, those Zionists that they make will move to Israel. And that means that they will donate less money to those organizations.
That's a bold claim. I have to think about it. Well, I'll also say this. I don't think Judaism is Zionism. That's not to say that someone can be, not in the hard left sense. I'm just saying that I think that Torah Judaism is, like, Torah Judaism existed in 1947 before the state of Israel.
Well, Rabbinic Judaism, which you're referring to because it's Rabbinic Judaism, is the Judaism of exile. And it's the religion of exile. Yes, it is. The Talmud was compiled and written down in order to maintain our community in exile. One of the biggest mistakes the state of Israel made in 1948 was not taking the time to prepare for a new Sanhedrin or make way to create a new Sanhedrin. The entire Talmud.
Okay, so I have to completely disagree.
That's fine.
You can
disagree with that. I wish we would have this disagreement though off camera, because we would have more fun with it off camera.
No, for sure.
But at the end of the day,
my point is though, is that I think that Jewish identity should be really strong, and Israel can help that. But I agree with you in terms of the assimilation. Like, I was laughing.
You can't have a strong Jewish identity today without Israel.
I think you can. I mean, in the sense that look at you can have a God. It's not without Israel, but I'm saying is when I think about Judaism, I think about Torah, or I think about Hashem. My Jewish experience is every experience. Shabbos is a beautiful thing. Whether or not I'm in Miami or New York or Israel, Shabbos is Shabbos. So it's not
to me, Shabbos isn't Shabbos without Israeli wine for Kiddush.
Okay.
Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I think the entire rabbinic Jewish experience, rabbinic Judaism, is all about getting back to the land. I think that there's a reason why when we daven, we pray for the return.
Okay. Listen, we're going to get too far afield on this, but I hear you. We can agree to disagree. We don't fundamentally disagree. But my point is, actually, we do fundamentally disagree on a few things, but not to the point that we have to.
We still greatly enjoy each other's company.
Yeah. So it's okay. My bigger issue is the fact that when you have influencers like Chen Mazik are saying pikuach nefesh is that's
a totally different. Yeah.
No matter what they did, no matter who they are, it's stupid. It has nothing to do with Judaism.
What you're getting at, though,
that's part of the influencer cycle that's being promoted by a lot of these organizations.
What you're getting at is something very interesting, and it kind of has to do with what we were just talking about, but you don't want to go down that route. But I'll go down that rabbit hole with you, but I know we have limited time. What you're getting at is the first thing that I brought up, which is the ignorance level of and I just wrote an article about this, which was the inheritance of our ignorance. And I said that our sages never prepared for a generation so ignorant like ours. And it's the truth, because there is this, and it really comes from the progressive reform liberal wing of the Jewish people. And keep in mind, I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is the center of Reform Judaism, or at least was. They ended up closing HUC because there aren't enough people, which is another reason why it's a shrinking side of the Jewish people, because it's an ever assimilating side. Thus, when you promote assimilation, obviously an ethnic minority or group is going to eventually disintegrate, like progressive Judaism will eventually disappear, because there won't be anybody observing it if they're not promoting the retention of it. But the point that you're getting at is that they take concepts at face value and then just regurgitate them in a way that fits any one of their political or social ideologies, whether it's left from progressive or far right with the alt-right. Okay. And what that really comes down to is a lack of Jewish literacy and a lack of understanding what Pikuach Nefesh really is, and what Tikkun Olam really is, and what keeping Shabbos really is. You know, a great example that I always like to say is I have a few tattoos. Okay. This is my October 7th tattoo. It was something that I felt I needed to do after experiencing October 7th and witnessing what I saw firsthand. Doesn't mean that it's halakhically permissible. It doesn't mean that it's correct based on Jewish history or anything that you want to try
Jewish
to
law.
Yeah, I mean, it's not halakhically permissible, and it's not the having of the tattoo. It's the act of getting the tattoo that's halakhically non-permissible. I'm not making excuses. I did it. I wanted to do it. Okay, that's what I wanted to do. Okay, you know, once a year, I break kashrut for one specific dish that I have every year because I want to do that. It's my choice. It doesn't mean that it's right. It doesn't mean that I should do it. It means that that's what I choose to do. So what you're getting at is this uneducated, I'm going to say whatever the F I want to say and manipulate whatever Jewish thing I want to manipulate to fit whatever I want it to fit in order to make me win an argument. But at the end of the day, I'm not winning the argument. And it's a huge problem. Another great example is when Lizzie Savetsky did the video on Kahana and completely misrepresented Kahana. You know, it's like when...
Well, I want to get into that.
Wait. There's another example.
Yeah.
What'd
she say?
Hold on. I once watched Emily Austin talk about Sinat Chinam having to do with World War II. Okay. Which... Okay. She was speaking, why she was speaking anywhere, because she has no qualifications to speak about anything. I don't understand. But, you know, there is a level.
Just for the record, I'm not going to comment here, there, anything on this. I will let your comments fly. Don't think that, I'm just going to say that if someone's going to come back to me after the show and say, how come you didn't tell Adam this, that? Okay. I'm trying to let Adam speak here.
Tell me what?
No, what I'm saying is that there are specific things that someone might say, okay, they're doing an effective job for this.
Great. You know what? When you get on Piers Morgan to defend Israel and you can't name the year the 1929 riots happened, you shouldn't be on Piers Morgan defending the Jewish people. Okay? Okay, so I'm sorry.
I don't...
No. Listen, there is the argument. And I'm glad that you brought that up, Daniel. There's the argument that some of these people are doing some great things. But you know what I see? I see people perpetuating anti-Semitism.
That's a strong claim.
I see people perpetuating anti-Semitism. I see people perpetuating the idea of the Jewish American prince or princess. I see an elite group of coastal Jews circulating money throughout themselves, going, look at this beautiful rooftop. We're partying. I mean, like, what?
All right, so let me give you the defense. I'm going to give you the robust defense of Lizzie Savetsky. Here's the robust defense.
And then I'm gonna rebut that defense in 30 seconds, by the way.
By the way, that's
great.
I am more than happy. And unlike what some people try to say, I actually am extremely responsive and open-minded. So when it comes to these kinds of conversations, I can be moved.
Exactly. Because you're an open-minded person that can listen.
When it comes to Lizzie, someone once asked me, do you watch Real Housewives of LA? Do you watch Real Housewives of whatever other places there are? I said, no, never in a million years. I would never watch or consume such content. So they said, you fundamentally don't understand her target audience. And there's a certain segment of people that are being spoken to that is not you. You are not the audience. You're not meant to consume that. So if this person can try to get some sort of positive message about Israel, that's what they're trying to do. That is my...
When I spoke with Lizzie about speaking about Jewish self-defense, we then got a call from her secretary asking us how much we would be paying her to talk about Jewish self-defense. I'm sorry.
What if it's someone's income stream?
Guess what? That's not her income stream. And you want to know something? The amount of money that she has been paid to go to places and say, get involved. The amount of things that she has done to put herself at the center of attention. The fact that experts are not the ones speaking on these subjects because somebody wants to take a selfie with her. It's the same thing with Zach Sage Fox or anything else is disgusting. Or Ari Ackerman. These people are attention-seeking, narcissistic people who never dedicated their lives to the Jewish people prior to October 8th. And if you didn't wake up till October 8th, then you're late to the game. Because some of us have been working for years trying to make sure that more of this doesn't happen. And
wait a second. Hold on. I'm pushing back because I'm not letting all this fly. First of all, social media in itself is kind of attention seeking. So everyone's going to be, to a degree, attention seeking, because
if I could throw away my phone right now, because it wouldn't have to do with raising money for what we do or promoting what we do, I would get rid of it in 30 seconds. You can confirm this with Hillel Silverman, who built my first Instagram page. I hate it. I think it is the worst piece of our generation. I think it is the death of our intelligence. And I also, here's the other thing. Here's the other thing. They are a distraction. The investment in social media versus real life is one of the reasons why more Jews will die. The fact that the Israeli government is flying these people over instead of paying the salaries that are necessary for all of the people that can't afford anything anymore in this country because of the war, when mortgages have gone up in Israel double the price. The fact that there are widows that can't buy food, okay, or gas to take care of their children. American Jewish social media stars, okay, they don't need it. I'm sorry. Like
what if they bring attention to a cause?
Cause. I mean, okay, so let me ask you a question. Okay, here's my problem.
The problem is that it's the wrong causes. For example,
Zaka. Okay, hey.
I don't want the ghost of Yehuda Messi Zahav getting fundraising stuff.
Listen. When I'm very fortunate to have a column with Ynet, and I'm going to be launching a column with the Jerusalem Post soon. I'm very flattered. It seems like a lot of my opinions have started to really take hold. I know that you and I really work very well with each other, sharing information and trying to expose what we think is dishonest behavior. The fact that no influencer that has been honored by Zaka hasn't come out to condemn Zaka for the missing tens of millions of dollars is a showcase of their character. Period. End of story. And I say that Zach Sage Fox. I say that Adela. I say that Lizzie. Okay. I say that Emily Austin. It's a showcase of your lack of character. And it really is. If you are paid to promote an organization and you find out that that organization is stealing money when that is supposed to be going to specific things, you are a part of that crime. You are. And you should have the balls and the goal and the moral fiber to be able to say, I don't support this. And this behavior is inappropriate, and I never should have lent my name to it. So you know what, Daniel? You could say, oh, they're good people, or oh, they're this, or oh, they're that. Let me tell you something. I want to know how much money these people have made versus how much they've donated to the war cause. I want to know, where are their ideas? We trade ideology and thinkers for hashtags now. I want to know what they're giving to the Jewish people other than 90 seconds of a dopamine hit. Because at the end of the day, they're gonna be there. You know, there's multiple ways you could say this. You could say they're going to be the first ones to get killed because they're out in the public and the haters are going to want to take them out first. Okay. And another way you could say it, and I'm not saying go violent against these influencers. That's not what I'm saying. I'm trying to explain because they create this visibility for themselves.
They're the ones who are at the front line.
Okay. And that's a bunch of bullshit. Okay. Oh, when I saw that Montana Tucker called themselves heroes at the ADL conference, and I really, nothing against Montana. I just thought it was a poor choice of words. But like the heroes of the Jewish people are the soldiers in the IDF. They're the ones who have given their lives. They're the ones who have lost their limbs. They're the ones, they're the children who have lost their fathers. They're the mothers and fathers who have lost their sons and daughters. Those are the heroes of the Jewish people, not people who search for likes. Zionism was never about being liked. Okay? Now, in all seriousness, instead of wasting money on influencers and content in a realm that is digital and doesn't matter, we are not investing in the infrastructure of our people. We are not investing in the infrastructure of Hebrew, of self-defense, of security. We are comfortable in the diaspora just like we were before the Holocaust. And the only thing I see is the exact same thing that we saw 100 years ago. And no one wants to admit it. And you know what? I'm going to toot my own horn here for a second. And Daniel, you know I don't like to do this, but I called this. You met me 9 years ago when I started TIFF, and I told you that I wanted to perpetuate and reboot the Zionist movement as a movement to be prepared for something that I knew was coming. That was 9 years ago. 20 years ago, when I got out of college, I met with as many Jewish leaders as I could, saying that Hamas was on campus, they were funding the kids on campus, that anti-Semitism was coming, and that it would return like it did in Europe. And they all told me I was crazy, and that I was nuts, and that I was a political extremist. So to see, let's not talk about it. We don't even need to go there, what JNF said, okay? Like,
No, I was actually saying like people like David Horowitz, not Times of Israel, Times of
I know what you're saying.
Charles Jacobs.
Yeah.
They labeled these people radical.
No, so in any other industry, I would be seen as a maverick and as somebody who saw something coming, and I'll never get that credit, and that's fine. What bothers me the most is to see these people who didn't earn it, who didn't work for it, who didn't see it coming, who didn't warn people about it, and all of a sudden they're the heroes of the Jewish people because they know how to make a 90-second but they 90-second video, but they can't even come up with ideas on how to protect us. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, we are in a stage, and it's not, I'm not jealous of anybody. I just want to see Jews to stop dying. I want to see leaders make responsible decisions. I want to see money spent properly and responsibly. Okay. I would have nothing against Lizzie if they wouldn't have asked us for money talking about self-defense. Like, we hadn't even come up with the idea that is one half of Project Maccabee. Okay. It was, hey, I got an idea. What do you think about talking about this? I mean, I
just want to say, Lizzie, Ira, Dr. Ira, if you want to come on here and respond anytime, I'm more than happy to make it happen. I don't know the story, so
it doesn't even matter. Forget the story. It's not the point. Listen, at the end of the day.
No. By the way, the point is, and this is important, whether it's me, I think I'm speaking for you as well. Any criticism or any questions that are raised, be more than happy to talk about them in a public forum that's recorded, because it would be the best way to get clarity. What happens is people try to say this, that, nobody knows.
100%.
Just clarity.
100%. And you want to know something? All I really care about is the safety and security of our people. And so when I go to, a talk where I see a specific influencer giving a talk that's a complete lie, and I actually watched that happen because the organization that they were hired to come and speak for was the organization that actually accomplished the thing that they were taking credit for. I mean, we're just living in this world where Instagram in the Jewish space has become like the DEI, where it's eliminated meritocracy. At 20 years old, you haven't really accomplished that much. You can't be a news anchor, a sportscaster, beauty CEO, this and that. You're 20 years old. You're just beginning your life. We've lost the humility of what it is to go down the journey of life and to earn things and to learn things and the trial and error, in my opinion. And I think that's a huge part about what it is to become a good Jew. And I think that's a huge part about what it is to become a good adult in many respects. And, there's a reason why child stars always have drug problems, I guess.
Okay, listen, I'm not as critical in this sense, but you're hitting a fundamental point, which is how are things actually measured? Why are certain charities prioritized over others? Are the charities in the rat race forcing other people to spend money frivolously? So, for example, when United Hatzalah is parading all of these influencers and all of everything, and we've been uncovering a lot of different stuff here. Check out Substack. Way more to come, by the way. You have to ask, what do other organizations have to waste to try to get the same attention that they're getting? And is that good for the Jewish people?
It's not. And let me tell you this, okay? So, like, as many people know, I'm really critical of galas, okay? And I've
You
been
and I both.
and I've been very critical of galas post October 7th, okay? Before, I was never really critical. Now, I just want to clarify two things, okay? One, I went to two galas while I was in the diaspora for 10 months. One I helped, which was the ZOA one, because I'm very good friends with Allison, who runs it down there. And it was during the time of the World Zionist Congress. And I also needed to meet with Dershowitz, who was being honored there. And I needed to meet a few people that were there. So I was very flattered to have been invited to it as a guest. They mentioned me on stage. It was very nice, whatever. The second one was the Jerusalem Post Conference. And I actually didn't start criticizing galas until after the Jerusalem Post Conference. And it was
But now you're doing a column with them.
and it was because actually they were supposed to be a part of the conference in Florida. And
will you pledge to criticize the Jerusalem Post Conference in the pages of the Jerusalem Post?
It depends on how they run the conference.
That's fair.
It depends on how they run the conference.
I have a lot of problems with it because they took money from Zaka to promote BS.
Yes. Yeah. Listen.
And the volunteers are amazing, by the way. I'm not saying anything about the volunteers.
We're on the same page there, okay? I just think it's really funny that I'm doing this and I look like that guy from Star Trek or Star Wars with this thing on my head right now. So
you look like one of those.
I can't believe I've made like 6 public appearances looking like this.
No, you look like the guy who got hazed at like the NFL training camp or something.
Okay. So, when I went to the Jerusalem Post Conference in Florida, we were supposed to have our wine there. That was the hostage wine. It was too late. They apologized. They were like, "Oh, we're going to do something with you in December or for the next one. Don't worry about it." I was like, "Great." They were like, "We'd love for you to come. Here's a VIP ticket." And I was flattered. I mean, listen, I've been running the Israel Innovation Fund for 9 years. I had Wine with Adam, which was a really well received and prestigious podcast with JNS. It's not like I'm an unknown figure in this world. I mean, according to all the 20-year-olds who don't know, I guess you could say a shekel from a shawarma. Like I guess I'm not popular enough because everything is measured by social media, and I didn't spend the last 9 years trying to build a social media presence. But what I saw at the conference, the behavior of how these kids ran around and behaved was so immodest and so disgusting. Zach Sage Fox paraded in there like he was a fucking celebrity, excuse my language, and he was dressed like a mook. They gave Emily Austin a second.
What does that even mean?
Well, I mean, he was wearing platform shoes. He was wearing a 2-button jacket, and he had the second button buttoned. And if you know anything about fashion, you never button the second button. It was just, I caught him emailing about creating content while Shelley Shem Tov was speaking about her son Omer before he was released. Emily Austin got up on stage and she was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry for the bags under my eyes. I just got back from the Middle East." And, you know, Emily, I don't think it's physically possible for Emily Austin to have bags under her eyes given the amounts of filler that she has in her face. Actually, I was speaking with Ellie Beer and he stopped speaking to me to talk to her. And she goes, "Do you think my face looks symmetrical?" You know, and that's the thing. Like these kids, you know, this isn't personal. These kids are sick. You know, all this influencer culture is sick. You know, I went up to Ari for the first time and I said, "Hey, I'm such a big fan. I'm a huge baseball fan. I'd love to sit with you. You know, maybe we can get a glass of wine, you know, whatever." Because, you know, as most people know, my thing is promoting Israeli wine, the importance of Israeli agriculture, the Israeli economy. And he looks me straight in the face and he goes, and this is right as his social media is taking off. He goes, "Well, I don't drink. So what will we ever have to talk about?" And so, you know, to me, I just saw a group of people who think their shit doesn't stink, who are being awarded for work that they're not really doing because they're just paying for it. And to me, it's a disgrace. And I don't have any problem saying that I think it's a disgrace. I really do. And you know, it took me 9 years in Israel to work to be an advisor to certain members of this government right now, or deputy ministers in this government. I've worked on multiple campaigns. It took me years to earn the ability and the right to have the ability to comment on things the way that I do, to build the Israel Innovation Fund. There's a modesty. There's that Zionism teaches you about working the land and becoming a part of the people. Chana Am once said, "I live for the sake of the perpetuation of the community to which I belong, and I die to make way for others who will save the community and remold it and prevent its stagnation." Zionism was about the modesty of the people and the return to being a Hebrew. And what I see perpetuated by influencer Judaism and by all of this crap is an American invention of the worst version of ourselves. And it's nothing personal. I say that to all of you who I've just mentioned. You know, maybe you've been rude to me in public because you don't know who I am. But when you walk around in public or at Jewish events like your shit doesn't stink, where you're running around in the streets filming yourself screaming and yelling, it's just not a good look. Okay, there's a time and a place for it. And at the end of the day, Hasbara is about one thing. It's about being able to disarm somebody with your tongue. And the fact is that we don't have enough people that are actually well educated enough to sit down with a crazy activist and turn them into a Zionist. And that's the name of the game. That's what the job really is. It's not about how loud you can be. It's not about how many likes you get. It's not about how many followers you have. It's about how many people can you stop from hating the Jewish people.
I listen, have a lot there to unpack. I'll say this. I agree you should be nice to everybody. And it's funny you mentioned some of the interpersonal interactions. I'm gonna be less than I'll be less direct than you were perhaps, but I had some not good interactions, which is also just weird because I've been involved the whole war very much behind the scenes trying to help
You've
people as
raised
much as
millions of
possible.
dollars for the IDF. It's an amazing thing that you've done.
But no, but it was always trying to just
Do the right thing.
connect people and see what we did right. So you almost feel like you got punished a little bit because you weren't out there being so loud. So it's a problem of the influencer culture. And I also think that you never know who you're talking to. And I remember talking to,
You never know who you're talking to. That's
so
right.
there's a story from Rabbi Riskin who did not ask or pay people Bitcoin for Candace Owens' conspiracy that she put out there. Doesn't even know how to turn on a computer. But he told me this maybe 10 years ago, where it was Sanford Bernstein walked into his shear that he was giving his class, he was giving in Manhattan, and he looked like he was homeless. He didn't know who he was. And they ended up having a conversation because his father had just died and he found tzitzit on his father and he was wearing them. He didn't know who he was. And he ended up going over to his office the next day and they started learning. and he changed his name or started going by Zalman Bernstein. He's given like over $1 billion to Jewish causes. Imagine how that could have gone the other way if Rabbi Riskin was dismissive or said, look, this person, he looks like Shel Shlumpy and stuff. It's very important that everyone just have derech eretz when it comes to that. And I'm not going to say the specific person, but that one of the people you've been talking about actually left me with the most distasteful feeling, only because
Yeah, it was
this
Zach.
person.
I'm sure it was Zach, because everybody has stories about Zach like that, and that's how he behaves. And it's really a shame. Like, I already know.
I'm not going to confirm or
It's
deny
fine.
or say anything.
No, of course
but
not.
I'll just say
Listen,
that it's just weird.
No. Listen,
It's sad.
it's sad. And a couple weeks ago, an influencer from Los Angeles reached out to me, who I used to thought I had a very good budding relationship with, wrote me and called me a kappa, and said that I'm a Jewish problem for calling out this behavior, and said, what have I done for the Jewish people? And like, keep in mind, the only thing this guy's ever done is, a social media feed. And I was really hurt by that, not because I cared what he said, but because he actually said, what have I done for the Jewish people? And was equating it to Instagram. And that's really the core problem, is that, I was thinking, and it was so funny. We got into this very long conversation. It was very heated. And I pulled up Gedalia Bloom's Instagram feed. He's got like 1,800 followers. Okay. He had just started getting into social media. If anybody in the community involved with Judaism area knows who Gedalia Bloom is, he's raised millions and millions of dollars for tons of different things in Judaism area. He's a hero of the area. He's a wonderful activist. Nobody knows who he is. Some people like to be modest. Some people don't, I've always said this, there's a coastal Jewish issue sometimes, where Jews from the coasts, they talk a little loud, they have thick accents, they wear designer clothing, and they think that they run the world. And, a lot of them, when they come to Israel, they think they run the country. And, it's, it does have a very damaging effect on our community. And I think this Instagram crap, and I think this social media crap, has had a very damaging effect on the future of the younger Jewish community. And I also don't necessarily, hopefully I'll be blessed one day to meet a very nice girl, get married, and have some children. I don't want my future daughters, thinking that it's normal for their eyebrows not to move. And I don't say that to make fun of anybody. I'm not talking about anybody in particular. I'm being really serious, and I say that as somebody.
Yeah, but that's a cultural issue at large.
At large.
I will also say the other downside of this Instagram mentality is it's promoting many times very weak, sick Jews, because it basically says
That's the whole
you
point
have
that I
this
was getting
country in
at.
Israel that can't function itself unless it has its hands open with donations, and it's an incompetent place that is just begging.
You have gotten to such an important piece of Daniel.
Yeah.
Daniel, the greatest ignorance of the diaspora today is that they think that Israel needs them.
Yeah, but it's Zach. I'm pushing back.
Hold on, I'm not
Israel
finished.
behaves like this.
I'm not finished.
And it has to stop.
I'm not finished. Because Israel doesn't need the diaspora. The diaspora needs Israel.
Then Israel has to stop begging like this.
Who's begging? We're not begging. I'm not begging.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not. No.
Okay, so then why? I have a question. Why does Magen David Adom have an American arm? Why do all Hatzalah organizations ask for money from here? If Israel is a big...
Well, United Hatzalah operates in America.
Sharei Tzedek.
Let me put it this way. I do not...
Why are they at?
United Hatzalah does not represent the Israeli people.
That much is very clear.
Okay.
But my point is, if you
there is
make
a perpetuation,
so everywhere you go in Israel...
There is a perpetuation of the idea that Israel is still the thing that needs to be built, and it has been built, and we have an army. And there is no, it's the whole thing about FIDF and everything that is, comes to light.
The only chance that IDF soldiers can have a halfway decent gym or get tampons is if Americans have to donate to FIDF.
It's ridiculous.
This is the image that they're pushing.
But no, that's the image that organizations that are based in the States,
that are getting commands from Israel.
JNF does not get commands from Israel, and that's what they do.
They're definitely in touch. KKL,
Wait,
whatever.
KKL, and JNF USA are completely separate entities that are not the same. They are.
I'm not letting you get away with
that you don't. No, Daniel. I will push back on this. One of the big things. Wait a minute.
Click on JNF then. I choose any other thing. Why is it that when you talk about raising money, for example, and you're to say we're trying to build a yeshiva?
Okay, ZOA for example.
What?
ZOA for example.
Yeah.
ZOA. They perpetuate this idea that they are the heroes of the right wing and that everything they say is correct. You know, it's really the Mort Klein organization of America, not the Zionist organization of America. No offense to Mort. He's a hero of the Jewish people and has done some great things, but, you know, his ego is quite big. And, you know, I mean, like, I was uncomfortable with a lot of things that I heard at the Gala. Okay. There is an idea that American Jews are superior to Israelis because you guys write checks.
No, it's that if you want to act independent as grown-ups, then there's a certain part of not asking mommy and daddy for the credit card.
We don't need your credit cards.
Unfortunately, I agree with you that Israel might not need it. But the fact of the matter is,
who is doing that? Who is doing that? United Maget David Dome. Great. You guys have Maget David Dome in Florida.
1 second.
Did the mic fall?
No, but it's, and there's things that are really good. Okay. Go to Ir David. Go to the Kotel Heritage Foundation. Why is Israel, why are diaspora Jews have to sponsor archaeology that is important to the state of Israel to further expand and educate the world about the Jewish connection to Jerusalem? Like, what? My question is, like, all of these organizations, and it's not to say Jews around the world shouldn't care, but if you're going to act like there aren't going to be ambulances, there aren't going to be EMTs.
First of all, anybody that acts like when they're raising the amounts of money, and one of the things that's very clear is that there is something up with Ellie Beer's organization. The amount of money that they raise, there should be a damn motorcycle on every street. And there isn't. There aren't. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Okay.
Also, it's not. You also have to ask what is United, because there's 20 or so.
Yeah, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
The way that it works is that each individual organization raises in their own community. It's a very interesting setup. Also, the most important thing about emergency medicine is that within the first 30 minutes they get to the hospital, not that they're actually treated on the site, which is a fact. Okay, so that's a very important thing. Okay, but at the same time, there are people who see one of the reasons why, and I'm telling you, one of the reasons why I've had trouble building or fundraising my organization, considering that we focus on very new things like planting vines and planting vineyards, supporting agriculture, you know, creating content that's educational. You know, now we're doing self-defense in Hebrew. And, you know, did I tell you about our new AI project that we're launching?
We don't have time.
We don't have time. The point is that I never wanted to do it's us versus them. We are surrounded. The Jewish people are in danger all of the time. And the anti-Semites are coming at the doors. And one day we are going to need you to help us fight them. Did you like that? It was a little mix of Russian and Israeli.
Yeah.
My point is that I refuse to play that card. And there are so many people who, you know, remember our grandparents and our parents, they grew up within Israel that wasn't necessarily as strong as it is now. And that's the Israel that they remember. And that's how they still see Israel. You know, our generation who's known it, who's visited it, who's lived in it, okay, that are the children of the Intifada, okay, 87, you know, the millennials and post-millennials, we're the ones who know how strong Israel is. You know, our big thing when we started TIFF was we wanted to tell people about the creative, vibrant, sexy country that it was. That was not the narrative, okay, for the first 70 years of the country. And people are still playing off that in order to get money from the diaspora. And it's sick, and it's disgusting, and it's dishonest. And there's dishonest people everywhere. Okay. And there are people with good intentions. I don't think Lizzie is necessarily bad intentioned. Okay.
I think she has great
I
intentions.
think she has great intentions. Okay. And you know what? I think her husband's a very nice guy. I just disagree with certain things that they do or say or how they present things sometimes. And I really don't like the way, I was at whatever. It doesn't matter. My point is that sometimes people do things wrong and sometimes countries do things wrong, but you can't perpetuate a myth that isn't true anymore. And the fact is that the roles have reversed, and the diaspora needs Israel to be safe now. And things are going to change in the diaspora very soon that I don't think anybody understood was coming. And I'm very scared. I'm very worried about that. And at the end of the day, the core of what you and I have been talking about and that we talk about regularly is that we are wasting money irresponsibly when it needs to be going into the infrastructure of the safety, security, and education of the Jewish people in the diaspora. And without that, the diaspora is doomed to be unsafe. And what I care about is a safe and a secure and a strong diaspora, and that we continue to try to build modern Maccabees.
That's a good place to leave it. I agree with you. I think that it's also an invitation for people to join the conversation, because it's not to say because you've thought one way before that you're always there.
Let me tell you something.
And
if Zach Sage Fox was to call me up and apologize for how he behaved with me, I would let it go. Same thing with I'm not like that. One of the most important things that my father taught me is that when you're an adult, it's about admitting when you're wrong. And trust me, I've done a lot of things wrong, and I've had to admit a lot of times when you're wrong. Okay. It's better to always just say, hey, I fucked up. I messed up. I did this. I did that. Let's move on. Let's move forward. Let's get some great work done. Let's do some great work for the Jewish people. I would love to reconcile with Russell Robinson, who said some really terrible things about me. But if he came to me and said, I'm sorry, let's do some great things for the Jewish people, done. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go save some Jews. Let's go bring people to Israel. Let's build some infrastructure. This is the thing that destroys our people. Kamsa bar Kamsa. There's a reason why the rabbis wrote that story. It was to teach us that. There's a reason why we know why we lost the first and second temples. It's to teach us these things. There's a reason why we know the story of what happened after the golden calf. We are the only people of history that wrote down our mistakes so that we wouldn't repeat them. We just tend to forget that quite a lot.
yeah, and I think that there's a lot of reactivity. We should be more proactive and really be willing to truly listen and internalize lessons and approach things with a real Jewish mind, Yiddish cup, and get better.
Can I just
So-
say one thing, Daniel? You're a tzaddik, and not enough people know about the wonderful things that you've done for the army and for this country. And you've outpaced me in research and trying to find where people have been misusing the funds of the Jewish people.
Oh, well, I'll accept your compliment. I want to clarify one thing here. People sometimes ask, "Are you against this person? Are you personally here?" This is how I describe it. When someone goes to shul and someone speaks in front of them and gives them a story and asks for money and says that you have an opportunity to participate in a very urgent cause, it's respectful to the donor that they have the true facts, numbers, etc., in front of them. That's the basic respect. Media companies across the world are struggling. Jewish media is largely gone. And as a result, they need advertisements, they need partnerships. As a result, many of the organizations who are coming to approach the same people, they're putting out advertisements in a lot of the journalists' places. So that's why you have the advertorials and the J posts, or you have a Ruth Sheva sponsored contest, whatever it is. And you might say, oh, it's so obvious that it's paid for, but it really isn't. And what's happening is that the way people are consuming media on Instagram, WhatsApp, and in these places, it gets very confusing. So people say, oh, people should do their own research, let it go. Unfortunately, in the new media landscape, it doesn't work because there's so many ways to influence the story, to put pressure, because there might be a board member who's friends with someone who runs this and then they don't want to say something. And that's the spirit in which I speak up, because
No,
I think that if Bubby and Zadie are going to give $1 million or $1, what's being told to them has to just be factual.
I completely agree, and I think that what you're doing is great. Fortunately, you and I have become much closer over this last year because of the work that we do, and I'm sure everybody knows that we collaborate on social media probably almost every other day, and it's at the end of the day, I'll go back to that gentleman that called me a capo. It's very hard to stand up and say something that's unpopular when you know that it's true. And it takes a lot of guts to be able to take the hit after hit after hit after hit. And, I commend you for, they're doing that. And, a great example is I've known Chen for many, many, many years. Chen is not a bad guy. But at the end of the day, if you're taking money from George Soros, okay, or an organization like the Tides Foundation, not only is it going to be public because it's going to be in your 990s, but there's going to be a reckoning for that. And that's a decision that he made. And, there's nothing wrong with making that public because it is public. One of my articles got rejected.
I just want to clarify, just from a legal perspective, receiving money through Tides means that they have one form of fiscal sponsorship, which is that they were the fiscal sponsor for Black Lives Matter.
Right.
In the case of Fen and the To Be Honest, someone gave money to that fund, and that fund, they take whatever, 5%, 3%, whatever it is. You have to be ideologically within that fund's purpose, and the financial part that they take, the 3 or 5%, whatever it might be, goes to the activities and the people that are helping run the Greater Tides Project or the Tides Foundation. So because of that, you might indirectly be assisting something that Soros is trying to do. I'm not saying he got money from Soros.
No,
I'm saying, but I'm just saying because you said that.
My point is that sometimes it's difficult to speak up. And, one of the things that I took this class in college called apocalyptic literature, where we studied the literature of the apocalypses from the Jewish perspective, the Islamic perspective, and the Christian perspective. And it was taught by the head of the Judaic Studies Department at the University of Arizona named Ed Wright. Okay, and he would always explain, I am teaching this class from the perspective of a spiritual humanist. Okay, I'm a humanist, but I'm also spiritual. Okay, and I believe that there's something out there, but I'm a humanist. Okay, and then what he would say, for the sake of this class, how will we define a prophet? And he would go, it is a social critic. And he goes, so like I would consider somebody like Martin Luther King a prophet. Okay, at the end of the day, it is very hard to be a social critic. It is very hard to stand up for what you believe is right. And I always enjoy having those conversations with you. And you should only continue to do the great work that you do.
Thank you. And you as well. All right.
How'd that go?
Let me stop it.